This is Sophie Heller, and this is an ACT English modifiers question. So we see here that we have this additional underlined, and we want to use this additional to apply to submerged subs. So we're going to look and we're going to see how this makes sense with this comparative, since we're saying that the US-made submarines could detect the submerged subs something than the Axis forces. So we see here, if we don't change this, this doesn't really make much sense, because it'll read, consequently, the US-made submarines could detect additional submerged subs than the Axis forces. This isn't going to make sense because it's not comparing the US ability to detect the submarines against the Axis ability. So this isn't going to make sense. Similarly, this extended is also, it's an adjective, is not going to make sense because we want to compare, we want to use something to compare with this than, with this modifier, and usually we're going to look for an adverb. So extended also doesn't make sense. Repeated is similar because it's an adjective, and if we were to replace repeated in here, this wouldn't make sense because they could detect repeated submerged subs than the Axis forces. No good. More is going to be our correct answer, because if we were to write more in here, it would make a lot more sense because you're using a more than. So they could detect more submerged subs than the Axis forces. Correct use of a modifier, and thus our correct answer.